you move? How do you incorporate movement into your life?
So I mean, I'm lucky because I work with clients and I basically tell them all to move. I'm moving with them when I'm working, right? So
Right.
throughout the whole day, I'm lucky. I don't sit in an office. The clinic I built out, I don't even have an office. There is no office for the owner or anyone. So
Yeah.
it's almost by default that you have to stand, move around, and do stuff. So I'm lucky that throughout the day I can incorporate movement, stretches, and things in my regular life. But I do try to keep active. I mean, I do try and work out as much as possible, which ends up being anywhere from 4 to 5 times a week, sometimes more or less, depending on what's going on. But it really is kind of moving throughout the day. I mean, Laura, are you asking more about specifically what exercises I do?
Well, we'll get to that, but I want to move back even further. So, before you applied to kinesiology, you knew that was like, the study of human movement. What kind of, I guess, influenced you to persuade that type of career where you're like, you know what, I want to learn more about movement? Were you already moving before? Were you already playing sports before? Or did you not know enough and you wanted to learn more? Like, what kind of brought you into kinesiology, and then which then led to personal training, which then led to physio, and like further and further education where you just kept getting hungry and hungrier?
That's interesting. I mean, you probably have to go way back. I think to the where I first really got into exercise, which was grade nine. And I remember going to grade nine and I was never a good athlete, to be fair. Like I've never been not athletic, but
Right.
I, I did sports teams and things like that, but I was never the all-star. I was always kind of mediocre at best.
Yeah, yeah.
So in grade nine, I kind of went into the weight training room and I was like, oh, okay, this is cool. And I still remember seeing a picture of a guy and he was in, I think, grade 11 or 12 at the time. And it's just a picture of his back and he was just flexing and he was just like muscles, right? And I was like, wow, like that's crazy. How do you do that, right? So, I mean, I think that's if you go back to that point, that's when I started. And from grade nine onwards, I've honestly been weight training fairly consistently my whole life since then. So I think it really was the weight training that, for the most part, really kind of interested me in that exercise component is lifting and pushing and being strong, like just in general.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, different story than mine. I didn't want to. I saw people working out in the weight room, but I didn't know what I was doing. So I was like, I'm not going to go in there. I'm just going to. And I just like, my parents kind of weren't, they're not super, super active. So they weren't like pushing for it. And their thing would be like, oh, you know what? You don't want to close your growth plates too early. So don't do a lot of weights or anything. And I was like, okay, I'll just play sports. I do pull ups and like just basic
Yeah.
calisthenic stuff. But I never really got into weight training until probably Cairo school. I did a little bit at Mac, and that was it. So it's like it's way
Really?
different. For you,
Yeah.
yeah. For you, did you feel like intimidated going into that weight room and not knowing maybe certain movements? Like,
Yeah, I mean, it was really intimidating, to be honest. It was like you see these things and you're like, I don't know what to do. So you kind of just look at people and see what they're doing. But a lot of these guys, I don't know how. I mean, they've been probably athletic their whole life and they're just doing stuff. And I'm like, oh my God, I aspire to be like that. I don't know how I'm going to do it.
yeah,
But I think, part of it was luckily in grade nine. I mean, it's a tough time for any kid going into high school. I went into high school though, not knowing very many people. Like there was probably two people from my elementary school.
right.
Um, I think part of that was why I ended up in that weight room because I was like, oh, I don't know what to do, and I'm not the most extroverted person, so let me just go into this little corner and
Yeah, yeah.
pretend I know what
If
I'm
I
doing.
become the strongest guy, maybe maybe I could join the bullies.
Yeah, exactly. So, I
That's
mean, I think
awesome.
that's where it came from. It's just that me roaming around trying to figure out something, and I actually met some friends there too, and that was kind of cool because truly, I think when people are in the exercise community, people do tend to kind of be good about it and try and help others. I think all of us go into it thinking, hey, we want to do better, but then we want to teach other people as well, right? I think it's a fundamental trait with a lot of people that are into exercise.
Yeah, but sometimes I'll see someone do something poorly and I just like I want to correct them, but it's like I kind of hold back because like I don't want to be that person because
Yeah,
on the other end, I've been on the other end where I'm like intimidated already. And then if someone approached me and was like, "Hey, I think you're kind of doing this wrong," I would probably, I'd probably take it with an open mind, but it's like some people might just get offended and be like, "Okay, you don't know what you're talking about. Like you need to
oh
get
yeah,
on."
trust me. I mean, as a personal trainer, they tell you to do that, right? Back then, I remember I worked for Bally's Fitness, and they were like, yeah, you get on the floor and you harass people. Like, you're like,
Wow.
you're doing this right, and it was super awkward, like just super
Yeah.
awkward.
Yeah, this happened at the Dufferin and Steele's location, where one of the girls, I was trying to tell her, like, she was the receptionist. I was trying to tell her, like, her squat pattern was off, and she's like, "What would you know about it?" That's what she said. She's like, "You don't look like you work out." That's what she told me.
Wow.
And I was like, "Well, here's the thing. Like, and my story to her was, think about Usain Bolt, right? Usain
Yeah.
Bolt is not running, he's not learning from the second fastest runner in the world. He's learning from the specialists who look at human anatomy and study human anatomy, and they look at how you can tweak things to potentially get faster. And so in his case, he has scoliosis, so they figured out he needs to take a longer stride on one end compared to the other, and therefore that would make him faster. Now, if he's just training with the second fastest guy is not going to know that.
Yeah.
So in that case, and the scientists who are helping him are not fast. They're not meant to be speed runners. They're not. So it's like the people that you learn from are probably experts or someone who has a good eye, an assessment tool to figure out what can help you the best. And they may or may not be the strongest lifters, but you're not going to learn from the strongest people all the time or the fastest
Yeah.
people all the time. And that was my story to her. And she's like, okay, that makes sense. So she tried out a few of the exercises, and she's like, yes, my hip pain went away. And I was like, thank you. Thank you very
Yeah.
much. Thank you very much.
And it's interesting because, the other part of that, not to go on a tangent, but you're talking about the coaches teaching the athletes. What I've learned with working with some of the clients now is that you realize that coaches have limited knowledge on rehab as well. And so I'm actually surprised at in Canada, the lack of sort of support for athletes beyond the level of the coach, which is to me mind-boggling.
Yeah, it's I wish they had just even free partnerships or something like that where it's like, hey, you can be part of Team Canada and we'll promote you or something like that. Like I would take some like take
Yeah.
athletes on like that. That makes the most sense. But it's like I don't know. So far, it seems like it's a political gambit.
Well,
They don't want to.
like you said, I mean, there's just not enough money in Canada for sport. In the States, I mean, if you look at even their high schools, they have better facilities than our universities.
Yeah, yeah. But it's like it's also priorities, right? Like
True.
they want you to idolize sports idols there, whereas here they want you to idolize maybe scientists or researchers or professionals who are not really sport based, right? So it's like sports usually tends to come second. It's the same thing with our academia's first, and then it's sports, and then whatever else you want to put after that. Even clubs are pushed more than sports in some schools.
Yeah,
Uh,
true.
Makes sense. Okay. All right. So now let's kind of speed it up to present time. What do you do in a regular like week's worth of workouts? You said you exercise 4 or 5 times. What are your goals? What are your priorities? What areas are you trying to hit the most? That sort of thing.
Yeah, so I'm actually very unstructured.
Okay.
I rarely do the same thing every time, but I do stick to one basic rule, which is the main movement patterns, that the big ones, right? So I just pick from the six: a deadlift, a squat, a pull, a push, and an overhead press. I mean, and a pull down. So
Yeah.
between those six movements, I mean, I just pick whatever I can make that day. So if I can do three of them, great. I'll just do 5 sets of whatever I can get to.
Yeah.
And that's kind of been my go-to for the last, I don't know, few years, for the most part. I don't have a specific goal, to be fair. I think I'm pretty lucky. I do keep active. I've always been fairly active, but I don't have a specific goal. Like, yeah, I want to grow to this size or do this thing. But what I do like is challenges. Like anything challenge, like I'll do.
Oh, you're competitive. You're very competitive. It's a good thing. It's a good thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so I mean, really, I think that's where I go to. Is like, hey, I see a challenge, someone challenged me, I'm like, oh, I couldn't do it. Okay, like I'm gonna try and figure out how can I do it now, right? So that
Yeah.
motivates my next workouts.
So what challenges are you currently working on, or has no one
So,
challenged you yet?
I got challenged on two that I can't fully do. One is the single leg, the pistol squat. So I can't fully do that because I don't have enough hip flexion range, I think. And then the second is, I don't know if you've seen them, but they do handstands and they put shirts on, like while on the handstand on the against the wall, I guess.
Yeah. So my
So
goal for a month is to do a handstand. I don't have the coordination. I've never really like practiced it or anything. So I'm
yeah,
learning from scratch, and I started like 2 days ago, and I'm slowly like working my way
nice.
into it.
That's
But
awesome.
yeah, challenges make sense. I just want to see like what your body's capable of and what my body's capable of, and it just makes sense. Like, why not try it? See if you can master it. and
Yeah.
then you move on to the next challenge. That's
Well, it's true.
awesome.
'Cause, I mean, I started the handstands a year and a half ago, and I just wanted to do it. And I mean, I still can't do a free one for for too long, but you know, it's good. It just keeps you at least working towards something. So when I say, you know, I don't have any goals, I kind of have loose goals, but most of it is, yeah, just to kind of now. I mean, I'm going into my 40s almost. It's almost like let me just stay ahead of the curve, you know.
Right, right. Makes sense. So do you set anything, any goals, or it's just like I just need to exercise for 40 minutes today, or
Yeah.
is that
So
it?
it really is that. It's like, look, I'll go a day without movement and I won't feel good about it. And so my goal will be like, okay, I got to do something. And so if it doesn't happen that day, I'll just say, okay, tomorrow I got to do something, whether it's run 5 kilometers or pick up some weights and lift stuff, do some push-ups.
Yeah,
Obviously now we can't go anywhere, so it makes it a little difficult, but I do have things at home to use as well. So it really is kind of set up, hey, movement is important. Let me do anything. And it really comes down to what I feel like that day. Sometimes I'm just tired, right? If you're mentally not there, that's one thing I've learned. You can't go hard on weight training. You're gonna hurt yourself,
yeah.
right? So it might be a good day for a run, and just go for a run, and you don't think too much about it. Then it's fine. So it really is kind of picking from a hat, depending on what I'm
Gotcha. Makes sense. Okay,